Welcome to Creepy and Geeky, the double feature podcast of horror and more. I'm your host, Robert, and today is the first part in a four-part look at werewolf movies. On today's episode, Donna from the Dawn of the Dead podcast returns to talk about those 1981 classics, The Howling and An American Werewolf in London. Welcome back to the show, Donna.
Hey, thank you so much for having me once again. I'm just gonna move
Yeah,
in because I just
right?
love staying here.
You should just, you know what? I should just make you a co-host and we could just do it from there.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if you want my craziness to be a co-host, but I do enjoy coming on.
Yeah. I love having you on. It's always fun to talk to you. You know, we always have such a good time talking about movies and everything else. So
Yeah.
it's always fun to have you on.
Well, I
But
I love coming back.
well, I am glad. I will keep having you back as much as I can get you.
Good.
All right. Well, today, like I said, we are talking werewolves. This whole month is going to be full of werewolves, and we're starting off with the big guns. We're starting off with the Howling and An American Werewolf in London. So,
Woohoo.
all right. So, what's interesting is both of these came out in 1981. The
Yep.
Howling was directed by Joe Dante, and American Werewolf in London was directed by John Landis. Neither of them really, well, John Landis isn't really known for horror movies. This is kind of like one of the few that he's done.
Hmm.
And Joe Dante, while he's done horror, his stuff leans more into comedy. He's done Piranha, Gremlins, all kinds of other stuff, which is more comedy centric as well. So, and both of them kind of come from this comedy background, and you can kind of feel that in both of these just a little
Oh
bit,
yeah.
especially with American Werewolf in London. But it, we're going to go ahead and start off with The Howling, which is so. I like both of these movies, but I always feel like I like The Howling more. But I think what I like of The Howling more is I like the werewolf design. Um,
Okay. Yeah, I was
and
hoping you
that
would say that that's why I is it the bipedal werewolf?
Yes. So that is my
Yes.
favorite kind of werewolf is the
Me too.
humanoid bipedal werewolf. I
Me
hate
too.
I hate like just giant wolves like we get in Werewolf in London. It's fine, but that's not what I want. I want like a hulking beast like just that can stand up on two legs and just
To me,
wreaking
that's
havoc.
always the scarier kind. You know what I
Right?
mean? I don't know what it is. There's just something about them standing up. Yeah, I know you're going to be talking about a lot of werewolf movies, but like
Oh yeah.
when I saw Dog Soldiers, I was like, holy shit, this is the
Yeah.
best thing I've ever seen because they're bipedal, and it's probably why I have a fondness for those underworld movies because the werewolves. I'm a werewolf lover. I'm just letting everybody know I'm a lycanthrope lover. Um, when I was growing up, it was split down the middle in my house. My mother loved vampires, and I loved werewolves.
And
So,
I
and
just
I
don't think yeah, I just don't think werewolves get the bigger love either.
they
So
don't. They're hairy and they're beastly and they're canine, and that's why I love them. I love that you have this beast inside of you, and then when you transform into it, you're this huge, snarling, carnivorous, just they don't have it's like it's all animalistic. There's no human left. I
and
think
you're
that's
out of
what
control.
you're
Yeah.
out of
There's something
control, and
very
I
tragic
love
about
that.
it.
It's something tragic about it, but I love the primalness of it too.
Yeah.
With vampires, they're either very alluring or they're sexy, or I don't know what it is. I just really like hairy beasts. It doesn't hurt that I like hairy men, but I like hairy like monsters in general. I just love them to be monsters. And I know
Yeah.
that was a question you had asked me when I did a podcast episode when you were asking the questions, what was the first horror movie? And for me, it was The Wolfman. And I
Yeah. The
think that
Wolfman. Yeah.
seeing it as a young age, I think that I just gravitated more to seeing werewolves. I just love them. in any shape or form. Be honest, but the bipedal are my favorite.
Yeah.
Absolutely my favorite.
Yeah, I think it's that's this part of what appeals to me as well is that some of the earliest stuff that I saw was stuff like the Wolfman or you know anything that had there was an old late 80s TV show. It was one of the first things that came out on the Fox network when it came out,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a show called Werewolf, and that was also a humanoid wolf, bipedal wolf that was just it was interesting. I like that it had a great design. What you did get to see of it, um, and I think that's by and large the biggest issue with most werewolf movies is getting that design down, and and trying to make it work. I know a lot of werewolf movies. It's very hard to get
Mm-hmm.
that look. Uh, I guess the makeup design, the prosthetic design, and everything is just it's too hard. Either it's too human or it's too wolf like, and so they try to meet that middle. And there's some that have definitely gotten it very right. And I would say that the Howling, it while it looks a little janky, it still gets it more right than not.
And I think it looks a little janky because, even Dante said the budget, he had a lot of budget issues. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to fault that. I'm kind of biased alone because Rob Bottin did the effects for this. So
Yes.
to me, it still kind of creeps me out. And yes, some of it does look janky, like when you see the bulging bladder aspect
Yeah.
of like the facial, cranial facial stuff. But then a lot of it is really gruesome. Like there's one point, I know I'm jumping here, but there's one point where Robert Picardo it's had like acid thrown on him and he's horribly scarred and gross. And I'm like, oh gosh, he looks really
Yeah.
nasty and gnarly. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Um, and and there's some things in it that are really great, like when you see their nails kind of extending from their hand. I thought, Jesus Christ, that looks so good. Some things are just
Yeah.
phenomenal. If they had a better budget, or if Dante had a better handle on the budget, I think it could have been a lot more than what it was.
Oh yeah, and the interesting thing about it though too is that Rick Baker was originally going to be the effects person for
I remember
the
that.
Howling,
Yeah.
and he ended up having to go over and do an American Werewolf in London instead, and he gave up the job to Rob Bottin. So it's that's interesting that he started working on the Howling and then went over to an American Werewolf. And
Yeah.
American Werewolf gets the better love in terms of that transformation. And I'll give it to that. Like watching these back to back like this, the transformation in American Werewolf in London is better.
It is
Um,
better.
because it feels like they had the better budget for it. And you have Rick Baker, who is an undisputed master. He's
Exactly.
probably the best person in the 1980s to do that kind of physical effects work.
I agree.
But Rob Bottin was no slouch, so
Hell no.
he definitely did a good job with what he had. The makeup effects that were in there, the werewolf design is really good. When you finally see the werewolf in all its glory, it's scary. It's
It's
frightening.
phenomenally creepy.
Yeah.
I was terrified when I saw that. I was like, Jesus, if this was real, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Like, because the swiping and the arm span and
Oh yeah.
how hulking it is over you. My God. It
Yeah.
was really one of the scariest werewolves I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
Like hands
And that was
down.
it. That was what was interesting too, is like once they become werewolf, and I've seen this in other movies too, they gain this height, that like in this like, just this bulkiness that they didn't have as a human, which is cool. Like,
Right.
that's what I love about that design too, is that it's not just like I like that more than the human person who just has some fur on them
Right.
design.
Just turns into the wolf. Yes.
Yeah.
I
Like
mean, because even when they do turn into the wolf, they still are kind of roided out looking, but
Yeah.
the because of the length of the legs and the arms when they're bipedal, it is so unnerving. I mean, it really
Yeah.
is, because you don't realize how much muscle and tissue and everything would be larger.
Yeah.
It's that would you would just be dead. That's it. That's no coming back from that. So I guess if you don't mind, what I'd like to do is go to the beginning of the Howling, because we are kind
Yes.
of like geeking out
Yeah,
over
we
the
jumped kind of
werewolf.
all over the place. Yeah.
It's okay. So the beginning of this film, and I noticed that because I watched both of these probably a couple of weeks before we said we were going to do this, just because it's been a while, like you did,
Yeah.
and I noticed that they have similar things. Like you said, you already mentioned that they have similar like humor. There's a lot of humor in these films that you really wouldn't expect there to be, but there's also porn in both of these
Yeah.
movies.
Yeah,
And I
that was
didn't
interesting.
realize that. It didn't dawn on me, because at the beginning of the movie, we've got Dee Wallace before she was Dee Wallace Stone, and I think her
Yes.
husband, or
Her
he
husband
was
was
her
in the movie. Yeah,
fiance in
Christopher
this.
Stone.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, they weren't even married at this point, and so
No.
she's a reporter, and she's going to meet. I forgot what his name is.
Eddie.
Quist. Yeah.
Eddie Quist.
So she's going to meet him, and she has to go to this like sordid, X-rated peep show type of establishment, and I remember seeing that, and I was like, "Oh, this is not going to be good." You're
Yeah.
going into a porno place, first of all, and then she goes into the little peep show booth, and I don't know if you saw it. I didn't even realize he was in that booth with her. Like,
Yeah.
when she sat down, and then you see this hand come out the darkness. I almost jumped out of my seat. I was like, "Holy shit, he was already."
Yeah.
So then he puts on this really violent, graphic porno for her to watch. And I thought, Jesus, that's a hell of an intro.
Yeah.
We're only like 5 or 10 minutes in. And it's a really graphic, scene of these guys, and they're torturing this woman, and she, ripping her clothes off. And I thought, that's so weird, because when you watch The Howling, that porno movie and that scene, it's a all in a kind of a heightened state of fear, and
Yeah.
you don't know what's going on. And then when you see the porno scene, the porno theater scene in American Werewolf in London, it's totally for laughs. It's like a
Oh, it's
total
totally for
gag of
laughs.
a
Yeah.
right. So I thought that was
It's
interesting that they used
yeah.
porn in two different ways. I don't know whether that was intentional or if it just happened to be a weird accident. But to have, that the graphic sex scene, and then to have this horrific thing happen in front of her, and have her be traumatized. And at first, when I first saw this, I thought, oh, she's traumatized because this man just got blown away in front of her, and the cops were there. And then she was also having the imagery of the porno movie that was in there. But then it dawned on me, no, no, she saw him getting ready to change into this creature, because he was trying to show
Yeah.
her something, and her brain couldn't really make sense of it. Like, did I really see that, or was it because of everything that was going on? That to me was a one hell of an opener.
Oh yeah. No, it's a very intense like opening sequence. Yeah. Because she's there to meet him because he's he's a like he's suspected of being a murderer, like a
Right.
serial murderer.
A
And
serial
this is,
killer, yeah.
this is in the wake of like, Manson and all of that so it's like she's this reporter who's been like, I guess he contacted her, and she's got her people and cops like supposedly around waiting, like watching and everything like that, and there to protect her, but kind of far away so that he doesn't run. And so it's this really kind of intense like sequence, like you said, that it's just it's a crazy way to open a movie.
Yeah, and she's talking to him on the phone, and he's like, are you wearing what I told you to, and licking his lips, and
Yeah.
I'm like, this is really sordid, and then everything is going wrong. It's like she's talking on the phone, but like her people can't really make out what the hell he's saying, and I'm like, this lady's gonna die.
Yeah, yeah,
Y'all are
exactly.
fucking this up like three ways to side, the Sunday. And then, then when it does happen, like you said, how ballsy of it is it for her to be a woman to go into this place that she's very uncomfortable
Yeah,
with a guy who could very well kill her. But because we've got cops standing by, you'll be fine.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it was just I was unnerved from the get go, and then it just kind of ramps up from there.
Yeah. Well, it actually like it's so funny though too because it actually chills from there. Like it's like she needs to like kind of like I guess decompress from this. So she goes and sees a psychiatrist and he suggests that he goes to his that she goes to his like mountain
Retreat.
compound
Right.
um which is so weird, and then she meets all these bizarre people and it's just like, wait, what are all these random weird ass people doing here? Like what is all this about? Like
What does
it's
this mean? Yes, like
yeah.
why the fuck are you telling me to go here with all of these people I know nothing about after I just had a traumatic experience? I'm sorry, I'm skipping over. The reason she's doing this is because once again she's a reporter, so when she goes on the air, they think she's okay,
Yeah,
and then she kind of has a
yeah, it's
little
like a panic attack.
breakdown,
Yeah,
yeah, in front of the audience. So they're like, "Oh, okay, you got to take time off," and she's still having these visions. And then, like you said, this doctor suggests, "Yeah, well, come
yeah,
to our
and she
little
can't
island
remember the
place."
incident. Yeah,
She can't remember any of the incident. Yeah, just little
yeah.
flashes of things are popping up. So as we get there, we meet all of these, like you said, these weird ass people. They're having like a beach cookout or some shit, and I think John Carradine is there, um,
Oh wait,
being weird as shit. Oh
I
wait, oh,
did
am I
want to
going too far?
mention. No, no,
Yeah.
no. I did want to mention something. Like go back to when you mentioned the telephone booth. The guy who's waiting outside of the telephone booth that comes in after her. That's Roger
Mm-hmm.
Corman.
Get
So
out! I
it's
forgot that he's in there. Yeah, there's a
yeah,
lot of cameos in this movie.
because that's how Joe Dante got started. He got started on Roger Corman movies, so it was kind of
Yeah.
like a nod to, hey, here's Roger Corman, blinking you miss him type of thing, and Forrest J. Ackerman's in the movie as well. He's in the bookstore scene.
In the
So
bookstore holding the famous
yeah, with
monsters
the famous
magazine or something.
monsters of filmland. Yeah,
So it's a lot of really cool things that they do in this movie that's similar to American Werewolf in London. They have a lot of wolf pictures, kind of like Midsummer, when you watch it and you see like
yeah,
all of the bear and flower things. So there's a lot of really tongue-in-cheek things that they do in this movie about with wolves. Like I think somebody has a copy of Ginsberg's Howl on their desk, which has nothing to do with
yeah.
werewolves, but it's kind of cute. Slim Pickens, who's a sheriff, he's eating like wolf chili. It's like literally, it's like a lot of these like cute little wolf things. If you're not paying attention, upon multiple viewings, I noticed these things. But even Stone is reading a book that is I can't remember, but it's like the author's last name is Wolf, and I thought, oh my god, y'all are really doing it
That's
in right
funny.
now.
I didn't even catch
Um,
any of that.
yeah,
That's so
it's
funny.
little things. It's so humorous that if you don't, it's a blink and miss it kind of thing. But after you've seen it like years and you're like, oh shit, I never caught that. Um, but yeah, so we get there, everybody's having this little cookout. I can't remember that woman's name, but you'll probably know it. She's supposed to be the like hot chick, her tits are out, and they call her like a nymphomaniac. I can't
Marsha.
remember what
Marsha was her.
Marsha,
Marsha
yeah,
was the
Marsha
character's
Quist.
name. Yeah, yeah.
She is so weird looking. Like she looked like a werewolf. Like when I saw her, I
She's
was
like
like
very exotic looking. Yeah,
very
yeah,
exotic looking. And so she's there and we find out that that's the Quist guy's her his sister. And just like I said, John Carradine is there and he's just kind of old man talking crazy shit. I think at one point he tries to throw himself on the fire because he said he's tired and he wants to end it.
yeah,
And at that point, I was like, "End what? What are you talking about? Are you just saying because you're old? No, there's a lot more other shit going on
yeah.
that we're not aware of." Um, and so her and her husband, they stayed there. They stay at the place, and she's still having like issues. I think at one point he tried to initiate sex with her, and she was like, "No, I don't. I can't," because she keeps having flashes of all of the stuff that happened. Um, But this compound is just, I don't know. It felt almost, and I don't want anybody to at me if you're a Scientologist, good for you. But it felt like a creepy Scientology type cult place. I have no idea what, I don't know how they felt so comfortable being around all of those people because it just felt weird.
Oh yeah, I would have been massively uncomfortable with that. Like, here's the thing. I'm not a big like person for being in groups anyway, but then on
Right.
top of that, just being around a bunch of weird people that I don't know, that just would make me super uncomfortable. So,
Yeah, I think I would have been like, thank you for the food. All right, time for us to go. You know what I mean?
right,
I don't think I would sleep in a area with a bunch of people that were just so bizarre for no reason. I mean, and there is a reason, and we come to find out what that reason is, but
right,
it was just too much. And at one point, the doctor is talking to her after Marcia comes over, and I think one of the other ladies says, "Oh, she's a nymphomaniac." And then the doctor's like, "Oh no,
right.
she's a free spirit." And I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, so she just bangs you? That's what you basically told us when you said that. Like, oh no,
Yeah,
she's a free spirit. Like, okay." Um, but this movie, it moves because after a while we see, I think it's two other people that work at the same news station, and they're kind of following up on the serial killer. They go to his apartment and they see all of these weird things, and he's got like lots of drawings and um you know bones and different things set up like altars, and it looks really
yeah,
bizarre in his house. I'm curious why the police hadn't taped that off. You know what I
yeah.
mean? They just kind of walked in there. But it's a movie, but my brain always goes to those places like it should be police tape over his door. At least they're
Right,
investigating what he did, because you might be moving evidence, or there might be a clue or something. But I love the fact that they showed outside of the little compound place, just so that we know other people are also trying to put these puzzle pieces together about this guy.
right.
um and I think at one point there was a female reporter and a male reporter, and I think she made a point of his artwork and said, "Oh, he'd be a great illustrator for the Marquis de Sade." It just, that
Yeah,
line always made me laugh. I was like, "Oh my gosh, what the hell?" But there's kind of following up, and then they end up at like the occult bookstore, which has oh my gosh, what's his name? Dick.
Dick Miller.
Thank you. He's in everything. How can I forget Dick Miller? Um, and he's running
There's
this
even a
occult.
documentary about him
I
being in
know
everything.
what's his name. And we see him in so many things, and he's brilliant every time I see him. And
Yeah,
he's the bookstore, the occult bookstore owner. I always thought that scene was funny too, because we see two nuns
two
walking
nuns
into this
walking.
occult,
They look all
and I'm like,
curious and everything. It's so
yeah, they
funny.
just go in and start looking around. And so then he gives them these books, and he's talking about different things, and they end up with a werewolf book. He tells them, they can only be killed by silver bullet or fire. And then the guy said, "Do you believe any of this?" And he's like, "What am I'm selling books here. I'm trying to make a buck." He
Right.
doesn't believe any of it. It's
But he was
really
very
cute.
knowledgeable, so it was
He
interesting that
was.
he had all that information, but he's just like, yeah, what do you think I am? Yeah, I'm just
He just,
trying
yeah,
to
he just shrugged
sell
it
books
off.
here.
It was, it's very funny, but he was very knowledgeable. And I think even the couple, the reporter couple, they end up going to the morgue, and then we go and we see that there's no body there. There's no,
So real
like,
quick,
Quist. Go ahead.
I do want to mention the bookstore. So the bookstore it has an interesting little side piece there. When the nuns walk in, you see a kind of like a corpse sitting in a chair there.
Right.
It right there. That corpse is actually from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's
Oh,
actually
wow.
a prop that was used in that movie, and then it was reused in this movie. So
That's cool.
yeah,
That's really cool. Now
the
I'm gonna
art
have to go
director
watch
had
that
worked on
again.
that set, yeah, on both sets, and he brought that in. So
I really like that. Um, so what do we oh, so they go to the coroner. They wanted to see the body, and there's no body. Like,
yes, and
he's
the
gone,
door is all shredded, and
all banged up to hell.
yeah,
Um, which was interesting because in this movie, apparently werewolves can, well, in a lot of movies actually, they can regenerate.
Yes, and they this he even said that it was controlled by the moonlight, that they could transform whenever.
Which
So
I love. I absolutely love the fact that they could transform whenever.
yes, me too. I love that's again that's one of those pieces of lore here and there that I love a lot more when I know that they can transform anytime they want. You don't really get that a lot. It's seems like most people like, and especially because most of them like, because it is typically the werewolf story is more of a tragic story. You
Hmm.
get more of the only transforming on the full moon, and they are completely out of control. And you don't really get that with the howling. The howling is they can transform whenever they want, they can control their transformations, and they are completely in control the whole time, which
Which I
is
love.
I
I love
love
that
that.
aspect.
Yeah.
And I think that's, to me, that's even more frightening because you choose to do what you're doing. Um,
Yes.
as opposed to it, like you just said, like being an out of control thing, and it's only
Well,
because the
I
moon is doing pulling it out of you. I like the fact that they're
yeah,
aware of this transformation and they can do it whenever they want.
I do think that they are still kind of led by their more bestial instincts
Oh yeah,
when they're in the
definitely.
werewolf form. Like because you see that with, like you said, with the John Carradine character. He feels like he's got um kind of some regrets about it. He doesn't want to continue being that. And you find out later. We're kind of jumping ahead, but um it's so I again I still kind of like that. You're in control, but you're still got these more bestial instincts going
I
on,
think,
the
yeah,
urges
the
to
primal
kill and stuff.
instinct, the primal
Yeah.
stuff comes out of you more once that side is unleashed. But I do love that aspect because you're right, it
Yes.
is more of a tragic thing where it's just like, oh, I know the full moon's coming, I got to go and chain myself up somewhere. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
I like the fact that they're just like, okay, well, we can just do this shit whenever we want, mofo. We can just pop it
Yeah.
off and on. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Um, Now I do also love the fact that this isn't the first time that they've had female werewolves on screen, but I love the fact that we do get to see that kind of transformation with a
Yes.
female, and it's like in the most intimate sexual. That's when most people are primal when they're going at it. So
Right.
I love
Yeah.
the fact that she was just kind of like, the fangs and the hair is coming in, and they're in the middle of this, they're into the lovemaking, but it's really more of just like rutting at this point.
Right.
Because what we're forgetting about is that uh so D Wallace, I can't remember his name. I know his last name Stone. What the hell is his name?
Christopher Stone. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Christopher Stone's character, which I can't remember, I think it's Bill, maybe. Um,
Yeah.
he is a vegetarian, which is hilarious. He
Yes.
doesn't
Yeah.
eat meat at all, and they make note of that. And they take him on a little hunt, and he kills a poor little defenseless rabbit. But he kills the rabbit, and Quist has a brother and a sister. Marsha's the sister. I think the brother's name is like TC or some little
TC.
initial thing.
Yeah. TC. Yeah.
And so, which is funny because whenever I see TC, now I think of the Preacher comics. If you've ever read the
Oh
Preacher
yeah.
comics,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a yokel, weird kind of character, and that's got to be what that dude was modeled after. But he tells Bill, hey, you can take that rabbit up to the house, and my sister will, clean it for you. And this is the very woman who we just heard was an nymphomaniac a couple of scenes ago. So I
Who
already
was
knew where it
also
was going.
given who was also giving Bill the eyes at that like big cookout the
Oh,
night
right. Yeah,
before or
she
whatever
gives him
too.
like the drink or whatever, and
Yeah.
he's like, "What's in it?" And she's like, "It's good," and she's basically giving him
Yeah.
the fuck me eyes at the damn
Yeah.
cookout, and I'm like, "What the hell?" Which I'm all for that. I'm all for any woman that is just like in their sexuality, and it's just like, I'm
Yes,
just gonna be as
absolutely.
alluring as hell because you're gonna want me. But then it plays into that whole animal magnetism thing too, because
Yes. Yeah.
werewolves are supposed to be like sexually attractive, and you don't know why you want them, and it's all of
I think
this kind of
that's a
goes in.
yeah, that's a funny aspect of werewolf. You don't get it like in every werewolf movie, but and in werewolf lore in general, but like you do have this pop up time and time again, and it's so funny that vampires and werewolves are seen as these very sexually alluring monsters.
Right.
So and different sides of that coin. Because the vampires are supposed to be all smooth and
Right.
suave and everything, whereas the werewolves are more like just like the animalistic, like the baser sexual instincts and
Yeah,
stuff.
there's some kind
So
of,
it's
they look better, their hair looks good, their skin look, they
yeah,
smell good. You don't know why
yeah,
you want to be around, like in Cursed, everybody was like, "Oh my God, you look great." Like she had no idea what the
yes,
hell they're talking about. Suddenly Jesse Eisenberg has got all of this confidence and bravado, and it's
yeah,
really nice to see that. And what it is it's what's inside you is that confidence. You just don't ever let it out. But now that you've been bitten or turned, you're letting all of this stuff kind of do its natural thing.
right, exactly.
So Marsha's fully aware. She's, for a lack of a better
She's
term, y'all,
embraced it. Yeah,
she is going to get whatever man she wants. They said she's an nymphomaniac, but she probably just likes having sex. I mean, that's just her.
yeah, yeah,
No
exactly.
shame, no shame in it, and I'm all there for it. She just creeps me the hell out. That's all. And maybe it's the eyes. This woman, I don't know, but it's so he takes the rabbit to her house, and she's all about to cook this meal, and then she's like, well, I'll cook it later, and then she just goes over and starts kissing him, and he kind of pushes himself away, but it's like, dude, we all know you had a raging boner when she kissed you.
Yeah,
Stop acting like you didn't want to be there. But nevertheless, he leaves. He's acting like he's disgusted because he's got a woman, and he's not gonna do this. But I thought it was funny because previously he tried to engage like a sexual thing with his wife, and she just she's still too traumatized to be intimate. So I already knew
right.
that he was going there after at
Yeah,
that point. I was like, oh yeah, he's definitely going there. But then when we see them, um I'm jumping ahead. So he leaves, and then he's attacked in the forest by a
right,
werewolf. And then later on, uh she turns over in the bed and he's gone, and clearly now he's been turned. He's going to be this werewolf now, and you see them engaging in this kind of densely fogged moonlight kind of
yeah,
sexual setup. And it always makes me laugh because now watching that and then seeing that scene in Cabin in the Woods. I know, guys, I'm referencing a lot of movies. My apologies, but when they set the forest up for them to just go ahead and have sex in the woods, that's what I think of. It has to
yeah,
be
yeah.
based from this. So there's never any sticks or pine cones. Everything's perfectly, the grass is nice and flat. There's nothing
Yeah.
sticking up your ass or poking you in the side. No ants, no
There's a
bugs.
fine mist along the ground, just
Fine
kind of
mist,
covering
a
everything.
very nicely lit area. And then I think at one point, don't they even have a bonfire? There's like a fire there,
Yeah, oh
that she's
yeah,
clearly made, and they're gonna make love by the fire, which sounds very romantic. And then you see them turning into these very beastly things, which to me was like, holy crap, this is amazing. I've never seen two werewolves having sex. This is awesome.
yeah. Well,
My
and
mind goes there.
then the worst part of the whole thing comes up because then we get that weird little animated sequence of the final transformation bit,
It's
and it just that
terrible.
part doesn't work. It is terrible. It's just
That's
like
when I started
don't
laughing. Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah.
once again, it's because of the budget. Dante
It's
didn't
because of the
have the
budget. Yeah,
budget. I can only
yeah,
imagine. But that would have been really the precursor to that horrible animated splotch that we see. It's still fascinating, and it's still kind of, you
yeah,
shouldn't be turned on by it, but you're kind of like, holy crap, this is kind of hot, because you don't
yeah,
get to see it. And when you do see it, she's, her claws are coming out and she's scratching him, which is something women or people do when they have sex. They scratch each other, they bite each other, and they're
yeah.
getting fully into this animalistic sex that they're about to go into. And it always made me wonder, and Y'all should know me by now. My mind goes weird places. So I'm like, so he wasn't concerned at all that he was turning into a werewolf. Like the sex was that good that he had no qualms about, or
Right.
or is it when he first turns that he's not fully aware of the transformation? I'm just curious. Like, was he just okay with it, or
That's what it seemed like. He seemed well, because like I think at that point, you're just it's a combination of things, just like the kind of like animal lust that
yeah,
he had going on. And I think just like there had to have been some kind of uncontrollable nature to it.
yeah,
Just that, you give in to it. And we kind of, that kind of goes into something else later on that we'll talk about. But, during that transformation, he just, gives into it. And I think because of the sexual aspect of it and everything, that just kind of blends more to it.
the
Like
urges
he
just took
gave,
over.
yeah,
Yeah.
he gave more into it than maybe instead of fighting it. So,
I'll be honest with you. When I watched this as a teen, I was just like, yeah, I was completely fixated on it because once again, I'd never seen werewolves having sex, and
right.
I never thought of them, and I never thought I would see that. And so when I saw it, I was just like, this is wild. Like, like this is not to be punny, but it really is just a wild concept to have. And then, of course, when we have by the time we get to Howling 2, they're having sex all over the place. But
Yes.
you know, I'm sorry, that's
The
one of my
Howling
favorite
2 is a
movies, and it
whole.
shouldn't be.
Oh
It
man, you know
shouldn't be.
what's
It's
funny?
terrible.
It's so funny. It is a terrible movie. So it's probably the one that I saw the most. We're gonna go on a side here, and it's not related to this at all,
Right.
but it's probably the one I saw the most as a kid. Like because it was, I think it was like like a mainstay on cable.
Hmm.
So it would come on all the time, and you just remember that stupid song that plays through the whole through the movie and everything. And I thought like, oh, I was like, oh, this is like a really memorable song and everything like that. It's memorable because it constantly plays. It's replayed in that damn movie so many damn times it
It
becomes
is.
so
It's terrible.
annoying.
It's so
And
terrible.
it's like the funny thing is it's not a bad song, but because it's played so damn much throughout that movie, it's like literally the only thing they ever play in that damn movie. Um, it's it's just oh man but
But
yeah, no, that's the one I remember a lot. I remembered a lot, but when I rewatched it not too long ago, I was just like, this movie's not good. It's
it's
really
terrible. It's a
terrible.
terrible piece of crap. I think I was swayed by the werewolf boobs,
Yeah,
like the hairy
same
boobs,
same.
the things you watch when you're a teenager. Oh my God. But however, uh amazing scene. I would just, if it was me and I was the director, I would have just left out that whole cartoony werewolf.
The cartoony animated
I
bit,
would have just
yeah.
left it where it was because we already knew where it was going. They're just gonna full on be
Yeah,
two
exactly.
werewolves going at it. After this, then what is it? Is it like the next day? She realizes that he hadn't slept there all night, and
Yeah, and
he's
he's got
still got like
scratches on
his
his back.
scratches on his back. She knows it's not from him, and I love his little response. He's like, "Oh yeah, that was those were there." And she's like, "They weren't there last night." It's like
Yeah,
she already kind of knows where this is going, and then he does this really. I want to say what they think was acceptable for the 80s, but really was not. She confronts him about it, and then he like backhands her.
yeah,
It's like this woman literally just went through the most traumatic experience of seeing somebody murdered and killed in front of her, who might have been a serial killer, who might have been trying to kill her, and your first instinct, because she doesn't want to have sex with you, is to go have sex with somebody else, then lie about it, and then hit her. I was like,
yeah,
dude, you're like the biggest piece of shit.
yeah, yeah.
Like
No, it
he
was.
keeps telling her to get over it, like this is something she can magically make go away. I think next
Yeah,
to Christian and Midsummer, I think he's the worst spouse boyfriend
right.
ever, because there's no it's like he's caring and sweet about it at first, and then he's just kind of like, well, just get over it. But then also
Yeah,
we have to factor the fact that he's now become a werewolf. So,
right. And how much is
you
that
know,
influencing that at that point? Like,
exactly.
is that is that now like that animal aspect of that now, and especially because it's new to him, is that you know influencing that. So
I think it was though, because he seemed to be very caring and not docile, but he seemed to be a lot more um just sweet to her and like sensitive to her needs. And
yeah,
after that night, he was just completely the opposite side. It looked like he felt some remorse for it, but it still happened. So at this point, she's wanting to leave. And I think we jumped a little too far because she had already invited her reporter friend to come up there. And
right,
she was also kind of nosying around to see what was going on. There was a drawing that the serial killer had done of a cliff, and she kind of figured out that, oh, this is the place that he drew, and was trying to do her whole Scooby-Doo kind of sleuthing about this island and the people that were there. Um, and it gets real hairy. Like, I keep forgetting that there is a mystery aspect to this film because I'm so intrigued by the werewolves. And once again, teenage Donna was intrigued by the werewolf sex. So I wasn't thinking about the kind of journalistic reporting that, this woman's kind of digging and, investigated digging, as I should say, investigative reporting. She's
right,
digging to figure out what's going on with this serial killer. Did he escape and come back here? And in the midst of all of that, she's accosted by a werewolf,
yeah, yeah.
and it's creepy.
Well, and this is our first really good look at the werewolf too.
Yeah, and it's broad daylight. It's not like it's
Yeah,
night. It's not in the middle of the night with the moon. It's broad damn daylight. And I'm like,
yeah,
this is messed up. This is like terrifying. So yeah, we can see it, and it's menacing and hulking and, you know, chasing this woman. And I think she ends up in a little crawl space and hacks off one of the hands.
yeah. One of his
And I
arms. Yeah,
love that effect because you see the arm is laying there, and you can see the bladder kind of pulsating, like the hand is still alive. And I just thought, man, this is the gnarliest damn thing I've ever seen. Because you expect to like hack it and it's gone.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's again. This is where the Rob Bottin like effects and everything like that come into play. Like that is really good. Um, it's a really good moment of that when she's hacking that off because it's gnarly, like you said, it's really gnarly.
It is. It's really gnarly and it looks really effective. And the hand is still kind of moving and has life in it. And she's screaming. Um, and she ends up running, I think, to the doctor's
Yeah,
cabin.
yeah, yeah,
So, things really start kind of popping off. And so she goes in there and she's looking at the files, and and she's calling the other reporter, the other gentleman that works at the news station, and giving him all of this information and saying how werewolves are real, and you know he needs to come and send the cops and come get her and all of this stuff. And then she's going through the files, and I love this scene because she's going through the files, and she pulls up Marsha's file, which is real thin, and then she's getting ready to pull up Quist. I can never remember Quist's first name.
Eddie.
Pulls up is Eddie. Thank you. She pulls up Eddie's file, and it's like super thick. But before she can pull it out, Eddie pulls he pulls it out as the werewolf. His
Yeah.
werewolf hand just pulls out. And I thought, how did you not see this big ass bipedal
Right.
standing here in the corner? Bitch, I wouldn't seen that before I even got into the door all the way. But it's just how he just so coolly out of frame. You see this werewolf hand just pull up the file, and I thought, damn, you have no spatial fucking awareness. I know you on the phone, sis, but there's a big ass werewolf standing like right there. Um, and at that point, he's getting her. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah,
She
she's
knows
done
too
for.
much. Um, and there's no way she can go in this room. And she's like, crouching under stuff and throwing stuff at it. And I think at one point she turned on what looked like a UV light, and he screamed. And I thought, why is he screaming at a UV?
Right.
Is it just because it's bright? Because if that's it, that's fine, I guess. But
Yeah.
um,
I'm assuming that's all was just it was like really, really bright. So
yeah, because they have like really super sensitive hearing and sight, so I imagine that would
yeah.
probably fucking hurt. Um, and it's amazing, just how creepy that is. And he's not really lunging at her. He's kind of taking his time, like,
He
a
swipes, yeah.
dog would play. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, he's really getting into this whole just playing with his meal before he eats it. But it was a terrifying scene for me because I thought, well, what could you really do? There's nothing in there that can hurt him. Now we know that they can regenerate because clearly the cop shot him about 25 times and he's
Yeah.
standing there in front of you now. So you really have nothing that you can do. There's nothing you can do to stop him at this point. And then her boyfriend hears her screaming, he calls the cops and he's doing all of these things and he's leaving, he's on his way to get there. But we know she's done for. That's it for
Yeah.
her. That's one of my favorite scenes in that movie, just because of that hand that just pops out of nowhere
Yeah.
to pick up the file. Like, no, you don't. Don't go read my file. And then it's just like, um. So then Dee Wallace is on her way there because she's gonna ask her friend to take her home now that she knows that her husband has been unfaithful. Um,
Right.
and of course she gets there and sees this woman that looks like ground hamburger, and I thought that was so sweet that she covered her. My instinct would have been to leave,
To
but
run. Yeah.
but she covers her friend, and then we see Eddie talking to her, and kind of almost mid transformation, like he's transforming back to a human,
Yeah.
and basically just talking to her and saying all these things, and that creeped me out. Like Robert Picardo, he creeped me out for like years. There was something about him as Eddie, just it really had me on edge. And he was so gravitated to her. But my question to you, and I still to this day I don't know, was he really fixated on her? Did he want her to know about what was going on at the island? I didn't know what his end game was.
Well, that's what's confusing to me because obviously his brother and sister are part of that community, and
Mm-hmm.
and everybody seemed to really want her there for some reason. And so it was very confusing as to what the whole end game for everybody was. Like, was it just that they wanted somebody who was high profile in TV or something like that to become one of them? To, like, I don't know, spread the werewolf gospel or something. Like, that's what was confusing about the whole situation. And the funny thing is like, because she's not a werewolf throughout any of this. Like, she obviously
No,
didn't get turned by him.
right.
And for some reason, I guess I never realized that until this last viewing, that that's what was happening, was just that she never actually got turned. Um, until towards the very end. And you so I was just like, well, so what is his, like, motivation?
Yeah.
What's their motivation? Like, that is very confusing. That's the one of the downsides that I have with this movie, is that it's not clear on exactly why.
What the intention was. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's the thing that still I still have those questions. I mean, I watch movies, I have thousands of questions, but that one, when we first see the intro, he's wanting to talk to her, and then we see that he's transforming in front of her. So I'm like you. Was it because she was a high profile reporter and they wanted her to tell people that they existed? Maybe they thought that would be easier to integrate into society. But then at the
Yeah.
same time, they're eating people. So, I mean, not all of them wanted to eat people, but I'm just saying, what was going to be the end game in this?
Yeah.
Is what I want to know. And I thought maybe he was kind of, just kind of crushing her, and maybe if we're thinking about it as a animalistic thing in packs, maybe he wanted her to be his mate at first. But
Yeah.
I still won't
But
know. I
again,
need
that
a
wasn't ever
definitive
clear.
answer.
Yeah.
Right. Um, so she's cornered by Eddie. He's trying to kind of give her what's up, and then I think he takes like the bullet out of his head,
His head. Yeah.
and it's so gross, definitely gross. And then she finds what, sulfuric acid, and throws it
Yeah.
at him or whatever. Man, that creeped me the hell out. It really did. The after effect of that, it was just so gross. Oh my
Oh yeah.
gosh. So everything's going on, and then what happens after Dee Wallace throws the acid on her? She takes off, right?
Yeah. I don't know how she ends up. I guess it's so funny because I just watched the movie. Um, she somehow ends up back with the doctor. Um, like I guess she runs to the doctor trying to get help, to the psychiatrist guy. Um, but
And
he's
then they end up in like the barn where all of the people
yeah,
on the island are,
yeah. And
which
so
gave me like Wicker Man vibes at that point. Um,
well, it's definitely like a community slash cult of like werewolves. Like it's definitely
yeah,
like, and it's weird though too because like you've got these, the psychiatrist is trying to kind of work one angle and kind of like from what it sounds like he's trying to integrate. Like he wants
right,
people to learn how to live with their werewolf sides and maintain their humanity. Whereas Marsha wants to live the old ways and just be animalistic and just and terrifying.
right. And then I
So
think the community is kind of split that way too, because a
yeah,
lot of them want to be what Marsha is, just do the way that they've always done things and not be in the line, not to have everybody know their business, but just live the life the way they've been doing it. Um, there is such a weird sense of community and such
yeah,
a kind of a split in that community at the same time. Um, and even the young lady that Dee Wallace's character had been talking to once they arrived, she said that they had just turned her not too long ago, and that she was completely fine with it. Um,
yeah,
it's just an interesting dynamic in this group, and it makes me laugh because how could this doctor not see that that this was not going to work out kind of in the kumbaya fashion that he wanted it to?
right,
Some people just like being what they are, and I think that's where Marsha's so-called free spirit was. She just liked being what she was, and she didn't want to be integrated into society or have things change. But yet they're also bringing new people in, like they brought that one lady in. She just got turned. Bill has gotten turned, but clearly that was because Marsha wanted to do her
yeah,
business. But seemed like she could have had sex with him regardless. I think he would have gone to her bed whether she was a werewolf or not at that point.
yeah,
um but yeah, this you could tell the society was crumbling, and I think they're only I think they wanted to just go ahead and take care of the Dee Wallace character because she knew too much, and they didn't want to keep her.
right,
um and I think that's more of an alpha female type of thing. I don't think she wanted to be challenged by her because who knows, maybe she would have taken her place. I don't know.
yeah.
um but it's neat when you get to the end of this movie. It's really crazy because finally the other newscaster guy shows up. He had
Dennis Dugan's
stopped.
character, yeah,
Right. Then, yeah, he ran to Dick Miller's place as a cult bookstore and took the silver bullets that we saw. I always laugh when they show you things at the beginning of movies because
yeah,
Chekhov's gun. So it's like, oh, it's Chekhov's silver bullet. We're gonna see these
yep,
later, and then of course we sure did. But the thing that pissed me off about the silver bullets, and it's not even so much the bullets in this movie, was that when he used the rifle, they had it like he had a rifle that could do multiple shots, but it was like a
right,
like a bolt rifle. I only know that because I
right,
have uncles, and you have to reload those things. You can't just shoot like he was shooting two bullets consecutively, and then he shot like two more, and he didn't ever load that gun. And I was like, dude, you gotta reload. I'm sorry, I'm talking to you from a military uncle nerd side. You gotta reload. That much I know. I'm a girl, and I know that. But it was still cool. It was still cool to see that because I think even he shot one of the guys. He was like oh yeah, that gun's not going to do anything for you. And he's like, well, I got silver bullets. And he's like, yeah, silver
Yeah.
bullets my ass. And then he shoots him, and I'm like, well, I guess he told you.
Yeah.
It was so great.
Uh,
He didn't
so
even
funny.
have to say anything else. He was just like, oh, I'll just shoot you. You'll see it's a silver bullet.
Yeah.
And then they do the inevitable, which is what Dick Miller said: either shoot them with a silver bullet or you burn them, so they can rile
Yeah.
all of these, the
And they
whole
locked
group,
him in the barn. Yep. Locked him in the
burn.
barn and lit it
Yep,
on
poured the
fire.
gasoline, lit it on fire,
Well,
and then of
eh,
course, go ahead.
oh, and I'm just saying, like, and during all of this, they do get attacked, by a couple of werewolves that got loose, and
Right,
before they burn them, and this is where Karen D. Wallace's character uh finally gets attacked and scratched, um, and that's where she gets infected by the werewolf bit. So,
and that made me so
which,
sad. I felt so
yeah,
bad when I saw that. So you almost got away. You almost got away from these people. Nope, too bad.
no. And then they light the barn on fire. They get away. Everybody's dead. You hear news reports of this, like, oh, this community all died in this in this barn fire, blah blah blah. And her and Dennis Dugan's character are then trying to work out how they're going to tell everybody, and they're going to put her on the air, and she's going to tell everybody about werewolves. Um, and like everybody's like, what the hell's going on during this whole bit? And he's just like, hey, don't change it, let her do her thing. And she
Right.
starts transforming on screen, like, for everybody to see. um and it's wild, and she comes out of it like this little, like, it's so funny too, because the transformation of everybody else was just like, crazy insane werewolf like
She
looking
looks like
thing.
Benji.
She looked did. She looked like a little puppy dog. She
That's
looked
how I
like a
imagine I
little,
would look.
like,
I would
the
not be
cutest
scary at
little
all.
she was like the
When I
cutest
saw
little
that,
werewolf ever.
I wouldn't even want to kill her. I just want to keep her in my house and just like give her
Yeah.
treats. But that would be my luck because I'm so small. I would look like it would be like Benji, like a little. I'd be like a
Little
cockapoo or
Boston
something.
Terrier.
So sorry, but she does do that really cool thing that we also see in American Werewolf in London. They look at the camera and then she has that tear
Got the
rolling down,
glowing
and I feel
eyes. Yeah.
so bad for her because
Yeah.
we know what's going to happen because her and Dennis, they've already talked about what's going to happen once she
Yeah.
transforms, and she doesn't want to live that way anyway. Um,
Yeah.
and then of course, we cut the people watching the TV, and they're like, "What the hell is this? What are we watching?" And the
And like,
kids like,
special effects are wild these days.
yeah. And some mom is like, "What are y'all watching?" And the kids like, "The lady on the TV is turning into a werewolf." And mom's probably thinking they're watching some scary movie.
Oh, that's so funny.
It would
It's
be
such a
wild
it's
if we saw that now. Everybody would just be like, "Oh, it's AI."
yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? We wouldn't even
Not
believe it.
yeah, everybody just be like, oh, this is really weird. This is bizarre. Like, what are they doing on the news?
Mm-hmm.
So people just be like, oh, okay, special effects.
So then we hear the
Um,
gunshot, and then we hear Kevin McCarthy, who's I guess he's the guy running the news program, tells them to cut it to a commercial, and they cut to like a dog food commercial or
dog
something,
food commercial.
which I thought was hilarious. But then we once again get people in the bar, kind of like the ending of They Live. You see
Mm-hmm.
people, and then what you said, the guy said, "Oh yeah, the special effects are wild these days," and we cut to some guy who is ordering food in this bar, and he orders a hamburger for a woman, and then we cut and we see who the woman is because the hamburger is ordered rare, of course, and it's Marsha,
Marsha. Yep. She
who's one of
survived
the
the
people who
massacre.
escaped. Yeah, she
Yep.
wasn't going to die in that fire. There's no
Which is
way.
kind of unfortunate too, because like in the sequel, you don't get her. Like, she doesn't
You
return.
don't.
Like, it's like this whole thing, like, the story does kind of pick up from number two, like the brother of Karen, of the Wallace's character,
Right.
like, goes to Europe to go, I guess, find out more information about werewolves and everything, and it's a weird convoluted story. But
It would have been nice if we could have had her. I heard that the character, I don't remember what her name, let me look it up because I hate talking about people. Elizabeth Brooks, that's her name. So
Yes.
she's the one that played Marsha, and uh, apparently her nude scene when she got nude for the werewolf lovemaking, they
Yes.
told her that her body wasn't gonna be seen. They were gonna do like, some kind of effect where you only see like you think you see her nudity, but you don't see any of it. But then that clearly wasn't the case.
Right.
So I don't think she was really happy with that. I don't know if that is why her character didn't return or why she didn't return.
Right.
But it would have been nice because she did have a really strong presence, and I think looking so exotic as she did, I would have loved to see a continuation of that character because she was very dominant and and
Yeah.
her
You could
alpha femaleness.
yeah, you could almost see her in the Sybil Danning role in Howling 2.
Yeah,
So yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But what I also like about this is that the credits is just them making the hamburger.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get a little like after credits little bit there too, which
Excuse
was
me.
interesting.
The little
You know,
Wolfman thing.
yeah, yeah, a
Yeah.
little scene from the Wolfman. Yeah.
I
So
was
it was
so happy
interesting to
when
see
I
that.
saw that. I was like,
Yeah.
holy crap, I typically that this is way before Marvel where you wait at the
Yeah.
end to see the end of the post end credits. It was only by accident that my uncle, who we were watching this, he fast forwarded and he was like, yeah, I wonder if they're going to do anything at the end. I said, why would they do anything at the end? Because this is before you watch
Yeah.
any post credit stuff. And he's like, I don't know. And sure enough, when we saw that, I was like, how did you know that? He's like, I didn't. I just thought maybe there would be something at the end, like a wolf or something.
Yeah.
So funny. I absolutely love this one. I think I'm a little biased that I love both of them. And I know it's a cop out to say I love both of them equally, but I do because I love the bipedal
Yeah.
wolf that we get in this one, and I love Rob Bottin's work. And I also love Dante. I mean, I'm just a Dante fan. But I also love American Werewolf in London purely for nostalgic reasons because I actually got to see this in the theater when I was like about 10. So um I think I just have a equal love for both because there are many reasons why I love both of these movies. But this one is your particular favorite?
No, I still think I lean towards the Howling more. I think the story is a little messier in the Howling. There's a lot of questions I have with it that I don't have with an American Werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
That just like we mentioned, like why was Eddie like um trying to talk to her? Why did they bring her into the thing? It's never fully explained. And the story kind of meanders for a little bit in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Not terribly so, but just the kind of the way movies did back then. Um, whereas I think with an American Werewolf in London, the story's a lot stronger through it. There doesn't the movie's actually longer, but it doesn't feel like there's any kind of wasted time in an American Werewolf in London.
It's
Um,
fluid, it goes from
yeah,
point A to point B, where sometimes in the Howling, I feel like it's going from point A to point C and then back to point B.
yeah,
I don't,
yeah.
and I don't know why that is. I mean, and I love that movie. Trust me, I'm not,
Right.
there's no hate in it,
Yeah,
but I'm like
exactly.
you, there's a lot of things that are not clear. They don't really answer, we don't really get
Yeah,
a good focal point of what the agenda was. Like, and
right.
it doesn't seem like the community had a focal point of what the agenda was either, because why would they
Mm.
keep bringing people in there?
Yeah, yeah. Well, but like I still think that overall, I think that the Howling just kind of nudges it out. And it's I think largely because of the werewolf design in it.
Yeah.
Having having the bipedal wolf is just to me much stronger. And having them be in control and everything, that's like everything about werewolf lore that I enjoy is more in this movie
Yeah.
than in American Werewolf in London. American Werewolf in London's stuff is great, but I just think this one's stronger for me. Of course, I think by and large most people tend to gravitate towards an American Werewolf in London, and most people say that's their favorite of them. And I don't fault them for that. That's fine if that's your jam. But yeah, um, but yeah, I That's fine.
So I will tell you, like I stated, this An American Werewolf in London is one of my probably top five favorite horror films, but
Okay.
mostly
Yeah.
because I went to see it with my mother.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just one that just stuck with me. You know, I was barely in the double digits. I remember we didn't go opening night, but I know we had to go when it had just come out because the
Oh,
audience was packed. And yeah, I wanted to be a special effects person after I saw both of these movies. I don't know why I didn't, but I really did because the bipedal, if they had a bipedal werewolf in this movie, then yeah, that would probably be my favorite. But since it
yeah.
doesn't,
Well, and they
then,
kind of do, and that's what's frustrating is that like during his dream sequence, we get the Nazi werewolves, and they come in. They're just humanoid, and they've just got wolf heads and stuff. And so
right,
it's kind of it's kind of weirdly frustrating that they
it
have
is.
that aspect of it. But then when David transforms, he transforms into the monstrous wolf
Right.
form. And like, and I'm wondering if like that was more of a necessity of, again, more of um budgetary constraints, um and more that they wanted to go for something more monstrous, and it was harder to do in a bipedal form, so maybe it was meant to be bipedal, but he just was so big he was just down on the ground.
But then
So it was
also too,
kind of confusing.
I'm wondering too, did because I don't know the dates of these, did the Howling come out first and then An American Werewolf in London?
I will now have to look that up.
I feel like the Howling came out first, and I feel like Rick Baker was like, nope, I'm not gonna do bipedal because Bautine already did that, so I'm gonna stick to
Well,
what we know.
I think that regardless of whatever came out, like when each one came out, I think that it is more of a um they talked to each other. They were very much in communication with each
Right?
other during all of that, because they were friends.
Yeah.
And so they so I think, and again, because um what's it called? Rick Baker originally worked on the Howling. I think there was probably um definitely some communication along the way. He probably did some pre-design work and stuff on that. So I
I
imagine that
think
that would have been the case.
I kind of want to leave it to it's up to their own interpretation because clearly if they're special effects people and they've grown up seeing horror films and seeing effects work, they probably wanted to just bring their own spin to it because even though Rick Baker's design for the werewolf is just a wolf, it's like we said, he's like very monstrous and it's hulking and kind of, roided out. It's like
Right.
this huge animal. And I also like you said with the budget, it may not be so much budget, but it might have been that it was easier to do. Like if you see the behind the scenes, how they are pushing that werewolf on that kind of dolly, maybe it was
Yeah.
just to make the shots more fluid and look more like the carnivorous nature of it, just kind of hulking on the ground and biting people, and you know what I mean. Maybe that made it look more feral in his eyes. To me, the bipedals are just scarier, but that's fine. I love it either way. Um, but I agree with you about the story. The story is very reminiscent of the Wolfman and Werewolves in
Yeah.
London and all of those kind of tragic, where
Yeah, we
they
get
know
more of
what
the
they are.
tragic, uncontrollable
Yeah,
werewolf in this
they
one.
know what they are. They can't do anything about it. And what I love about this one is it's a total '80s thing because if somebody told you that you were going to turn to a werewolf in 1980, you'd be like, "Get the fuck out of here! What the fuck are you talking
Right.
about? Werewolves don't exist. I don't even know what the hell you're talking about. That's movie shit." Um, and his reaction is our reaction. Nobody's gonna believe that shit. Like even up until it happened, he was still like, yeah, right. you know? Um, which is horrifying thing to think about, in the back of your head, that this is probably fake, but then in the back of your head, you're like, well, what if it isn't though?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Without sounding crazy or having somebody lock you up in an asylum, how do you tell people that? Which I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead, but he does try. But uh, I think the first thing I do want to say though is David Naughton, for people who probably are younger than us, may not know, he really was famous because he was in Dr. Pepper commercials.
Yeah, the Dr. Pepper commercials. And the fact that he took this job actually lost him the Dr. Pepper
The
account.
Dr. Pepper
Um,
job.
yeah.
So for anybody that's listening, if you've never seen a Dr. Pepper commercial with David Naughton, go and look it up because it is very infectious. They would just sing this Dr. Pepper jingle
Yep.
and it just got stuck in
I'm a
your
pepper,
head.
you're a pepper.
Yeah. Wouldn't you like to be a pepper
Be a
too? It's
pepper
real
too.
cheesy, y'all. We're just warning you. Go to YouTube
Oh,
and look
it's very
at
70s, late 70s, early 80s.
horrible. But when I saw him as a kid in the theater, I was like, oh, that's the Dr. Pepper guy. So I'm thinking, oh, it's just going to be like Lon Chaney werewolf. It's not it's not going to be anything
Yeah.
too scary. And my mother was terribly horrified at the fact that it was as graphic as it was. She did not think it was. She thought it was going to be kind of like hokey werewolf transformation type of thing, which it wasn't. It was great.
Oh, yeah. It's it won an Academy Award. It won the first Academy
The
Award for
first,
special effects.
the
Um,
first one.
and in fact, it led Rick Baker to much bigger and better jobs after that, and led to the obviously the now famous Thriller video
Yep.
by Michael Jackson, which was also again directed by John Landis with effects by Rick Baker. Michael Jackson was so taken with this movie and the effects of it that he wanted to recreate that for his Thriller video.
I think everybody was just there were certain things in here about the effects that were outstanding, that we had
Right.
not seen in a transformation. Hands and limbs stretching, the
Yeah.
ankles stretching, hearing the sound of the tendons and the spine
Bones popping and
popping.
everything. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was crazy. And then to see that body when he flipped over, elongate that torso,
Yeah.
um, it was incredible. It was just an incredible thing to watch. I hadn't seen a good werewolf transformation like that for the longest until I watched Hemlock Grove. That was a show that was on
Oh,
Netflix,
okay.
and there was a transformation in there that to this day I don't know how they did half of the stuff they did, and that's the only one that's come close to this for me. It's really an outstanding transformation. But should we start at the beginning? Because we do
Kind of
this a
all over the
lot.
place.
This is why we
Yeah.
can't talk to anymore. Um, so we see David and I'm gonna forget his name, Jack. They're hitchhiking. So we're supposed to believe they're college kids, right? They're college
Right.
35-year-old college kids.
Again, I really don't think they were out of their 20s, but I think just everybody in the 80s looked so much older than they were.
So 35-year-old college kids hiking throughout Europe, as people are wont to do. You want to have life experiences and you want to see things before you become an adult, and everything turns to shit. So they're hitchhiking and they end up in a pub, in a little English pub on the countryside, which it always cracks me up because when they walked in, it was almost like everybody froze.
Yeah.
Like all of the patrons froze. Like, what are you doing in here? And once again, forgot one more really cool thing. Every song in this movie has something to do with moon.
Yes, yes, yeah. They did try to get a song by Cat Stevens, but he'd already become Muslim by that
Yusuf,
point.
yeah, he'd already become
And
Yusuf.
Yusuf Islam.
Mm-hmm.
And he was not
Denied it. Yep.
he denied it because he didn't think the song should be in a movie about killing and everything like that. But apparently the song is about killing. So the song really fit the movie. So it was just really weird that they said, that he said no,
Wow.
but it was just like, okay, well, whatever. So yeah,
So I absolutely love the fact that every song in this has moon in the title or has to do with the blue moon or whatever.
yeah,
My mom loved it. Like, I think we got the soundtrack for this almost a couple of months later. She loved it so much. Um, but it was clever. Those are things that are clever. Just like in the Howling, how they have all of these little nods to wolves. But so they go into this pub and everybody kind of froze, and then they ask for something, hot to drink because it's cold outside. And then Jack notices there is what he called a pentangle on the wall, and he said that's what they used in the Wolfman. Or, and I was like, dude, you should know better than to ask anything in a place you don't know, and people gave you that
right,
reception when you walked in, but whatever. And so he's
yeah,
like, ask them what it means, ask them what that. And they get kicked out. And we know that there's something going on because the poor innkeeper lady, she's just like, no, no, you can't let them leave. You have to let them stay.
right,
Um, and we're not thinking anything about it. We know what we're in for because it's titled American Werewolf in London, but there's nothing really leading us to believe that there's a werewolf out there other than the comment that Jack made about the movie that it was in. And they tell them what? Beware of the moon, stay on
yes,
the
and
roads,
stay on the
beware
road.
of the moors. Yeah.
Beware of the
Um,
Moors.
so they start talking about, the people in the pub and how weird they were. And then they start talking about other shit. And the next thing they know, they're not on the road anymore. And they start
Yeah,
hearing howling and it gets kind of creepy. Um, I absolutely love this scene when they go, "What is that?" They see something and the audience doesn't see it, so we don't know what the hell they're looking at.
yeah. No, this one utilizes a lot of more quick looks, um, and more just kind of like the perspective of the victims,
Which I
just
love.
keeping an eye on them. It's more of that scary. What you don't see is scarier than what you would
Yes.
see.
Yeah, our imagination makes it far worse than it probably would ever be.
Exactly.
And I love that aspect of it. Because you might be envisioning something different completely than what I might be envisioning in my head. And
Right.
I love that kind of horror. It just works so well. Um, and then so they try to get away from whatever it is that they don't know what it is. And then they say, "Oh no, it's some kind of animal." you know. I think one of them might have said it's a wolf. I don't remember.
Right.
And they start
Yeah, I
walking,
think they said, yeah.
and then David trips, and then they're laughing about it, because they're scared, but it was a funny little thing that happened. And out of nowhere, we get a werewolf that just rips Jack to shreds. And I literally jumped out of my seat. What is because I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting it to just jump out of like he extends his hand to pick him up, to help him up, and then that's when the wolf comes and just nods and just mauls at him. And I'm like, holy crap, that is terrifying. Because we're
Yeah.
laughing. It was like a laughing, funny little moment. And that's what Landis does so well. It's like you have these funny moments, these funny haha moments, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's got you. you know?
Yeah.
Uh
I would say this movie's got a lot more comedy to it, especially with those songs. Like you mentioned, these songs are like a lot more, they juxtapose the more frightening aspects of the movie with these kind of
right.
lighter songs. And so it's kind of puts you on a different edge. Um, so but he's got it's a like a dark comedy though. It's a very dark comedy in this. So
He, like you said, he teeters such a perfect line because it is still horror, but there is, you find yourself laughing and like, oh man, that is so funny. I should not be laughing at this right now. Um, and so David gets bit. He's all scratched up and bitten up, and Jack's done for. Like once again, my favorite term, he's ground hamburger at this point. There's no coming back from this guy. And then we hear the people from the bar with, guns, and they're shooting, and David looks over, and the last thing he sees is what looks like now a naked man with bullet wounds all over his body.
Right.
And he passes out, and then we're in the hospital in London. The thing I love about this being in London is that everybody is so overly British.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, when these people, and I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but when these people are being accosted, or like they're running from something, they're very British. They're just like, is anyone there? There's
Yeah.
there's no fear whatsoever. It's just like, I don't have time for this foolishness. They're very rigid in their responses to what they believe are, people playing pranks or whatever. It's my
Right.
favorite thing. It's that I think that adds to the comic element for me, because unfortunately, living in the United States, they would just come up with guns blazing. And I know, and
Right.
it's
Right.
not to make fun of anything that's going on in the world now, but that's how people are in America. They just would come out with guns blazing, and then they ask questions later. But over there, it's just the, who's out there? Is anyone there?
Yeah.
That kind of cracks me up to no end. So we get to the hospital. This is your podcast. Why am I talking so damn
I don't
much
know.
today?
You do great. I love when you're on. You like to tell these. You like to do the recaps. It works
I
well.
love to tell a story, let me tell you. But so we get to the hospital, and we get a very pervy nurse who, David's in there, he's sedated and whatnot. And she's remarking to another nurse, oh, he's not circumcised. And the nurse is like, how do you know that? And she's like, I've had a look. And I'm like, holy crap, lady, you would be so fired if you did that. In today's society, you would be fired in
Yeah.
like a heartbeat, like not
Oh,
even
in a
trying to be
heartbeat.
funny.
Right.
Um, but I was just like, so, we've got one really cute nurse, uh, Jenny Agutter. I always mess up her
Yes.
name. She
Uh,
is so adorable in this movie. She's got like the Disney princess eyes, and she's just super sweet. Um, and I was trying to think of what I was going to say. Oh, so the doctor comes in, and he's like, "You shouldn't be doing that." We all know she shouldn't be doing that. It's very cheeky. The hospital is trying to figure out what's going on with this guy, and it's I don't know. I love the dynamic between him being this Yank and this very posh world. It's like,
yeah.
when he starts saying all of these things about what happened, and they tell him that Jack's dead, and it's almost like he's a brash American, and they think he's just off his nut. And he's not. He really has got something very terrible going on. But I do also love the fact that we have the one doctor who actually starts doing, once again, as I like to call it, the Scooby-Doo investigating
Right.
to see what's going on with why is this man thinking he's a werewolf, or what happened to this guy. I
Well,
love that he
because the
did the
cops have
sleuthing.
just because the cops just accepted the locals, like, oh yeah, it was just some insane guy,
Oh yeah, he was a lunatic
the
or
lunatic.
whatever.
Yeah. So
I love it.
lunatic who's on the loose, and then he just accepts it, and he then or the cops just accept it, and then the doctor's just like, something's going on here. He doesn't believe in because eventually we find out that they're that well that we're jumping ahead, but so he begins to investigate due to what he finds out a little bit later, but he doesn't fully believe in the whole werewolf thing, but he's just like, but something is going on here that doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
because they're talking to David, and they're asking him all of these things. And I think what I love about the cops, we had the one cop that was just like, no, 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 he's just hallucinating. And then his sidekick is like so dumb. He has like the dumbest deputy
Oh my god,
sidekick.
yeah.
He's like bumbling and dropping things, and he's just completely stupid. It's like the worst guy ever. But yeah, we did jump a little bit ahead. Okay, so David was scratched and bitten. He's
Yes.
having hallucinations, terrible hallucinations about running naked in the forest, eating, deer. Uh, the, he also has like a terrible dream about his family. I think you were talking about earlier with the Nazi
Yes.
werewolves.
Yes.
Whole family is massacred while not Sesame Street, while the Muppet Show is on,
The
for
Muppets.
God's
Yeah.
sake, in the background, not the Muppets.
Yeah.
Which is funny because we had Miss Piggy.
Yes.
He
Frank
was in
Oz.
this.
Yep.
Yep. In a earlier scene in the hospital, which obviously is a Landis movie, he's going to be in it. But
Yeah.
uh, you know, so he's having these kind of dreams that are kind of leading up to what's going to happen. He sees Jack, unfortunately, as he's kind of decaying, which
Yes.
I love that makeup work on him. I mean, every time we see him, he gets more and more decayed and more
Yeah.
rotten, and
I
it's
love
just
that.
it's so creepy, man. And his sense of humor has not lost a beat. Like he's steady sitting there giving us all of these funny quips while he's an undead person, which is so funny. Like his delivery with him is just absolutely perfect. Uh, asking him if he could have a piece of toast, and you said this
Yeah.
little flap of skin just hanging off. It's gross. I shouldn't be laughing
Yeah.
at it. I know y'all think I'm morbid as hell, but it's so wonderful to see that kind of effect work and then to have that kind of humor. It
Right.
balances it
Yeah.
out, like we just said, you're not all creeped out. You're actually laughing and you're like, should I really be laughing at this man with a rotting
Right.
face? But it's hilarious. I mean, I think at some point we get to him and he's a skeleton, and he's still
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah.
It's
He's fully like even more rotted out. Just the like so close to being just an animated skeleton.
right. And then
Um.
we see the victims that he's had once he starts turning into this werewolf. Well, let's talk about the werewolf transformation first. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
Well, this is the first scene with Jack. After in the hospital, the first scene with him rotting is where he tells David that he's going to become a werewolf in 2 days on the full moon, and that he should kill himself before he ends up killing other people. So,
To which
and
nobody's gonna, and he thinks he's once again at the beginning, he's thinking he's hallucinating, like this is all
yes,
in his head, but it's not.
no, no, and and this is this is where he's like he kind of accepts it at that point, and he's just like because that's when he's freaking out, and Nurse Price comes in, and he kisses her, and they because they've had this kind of flirtation before, but he kisses her and just goes, I'm a werewolf. He kind of like has gone kind of crazy but kind of accepting at the same time. um and I think that, and this is where the doctor is just like, okay, I don't believe any of this, but I'm gonna investigate this.
Which I thought was pretty bold on his part. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
once again, most movie characters, they just accept it and they go, yeah, he's just crazy. We're not gonna
Yeah, exactly.
entertain the thought. So he goes back to the pub and gets some information from, I think, the guy who threw the darts, who I thought was going to be not the person that would help him, but
Yeah.
he ends up giving him a little bit of information. And of course, one of the other patrons are like, "That's enough." They don't want everybody knowing that they clearly have a werewolf in their midst, or this is a regular thing. I would think you would want somebody to know so you could get like, animal control or whatever you whatever you need to do to get them out of your midst. Uh but let's talk about the victims. So he turns into the werewolf. Sorry, I want to talk about the
Yes.
transformation.
Yes.
Uh
Yes.
what I love about the transformation scene, along with the fact that they play Blue Moon and it just happens out of nowhere. Like we're sitting there just like David and he's reading a book and all of a sudden he gets like shooting pains and we don't know what's going on. I mean, we know he's turning, but I never thought about that, like your head would hurt. Like
Yeah.
the transformation, that we've never seen it like that. Usually you see the time lapse thing and they kind of sprout hairs and whatever, but he's in physical pain. Like his head is burning, he's burning up, he's ripping off his clothes because if you're sprouting fur, your degrees are going up. I'm sure you've gone up a good
Yeah.
many degrees. And so all of these physical things are happening to him and he's screaming. And there's one part, once again, Landis humor, where he's like, I didn't mean to call you Hamburger Jack.
Yeah.
Like Jack had anything to do with this. But that line always makes me laugh, because it's like, why would you say that in the midst of turning into a werewolf? But he's regretting not believing him, and he's ripping his clothes off, and fur is sprouting and bones are cracking. And going from the Wolfman as a kid and seeing him, just kind of sprout hair. He still got on his pants, his shoes
Yeah.
and his shirts, all of the stuff is on, so it's covering all of the vital areas clearly, because this was before people could show things. But he wasn't bursting out of his clothes like the Hulk. Maybe his
Yeah. Yeah.
shoes, I think maybe the shoes got, bursted open with the claws. But when I saw this, I thought, oh God, I never really thought about how painful that would be, because you didn't see it as a painful
Yeah.
transformation. Even in the Howling, they just transformed, and you saw like the bladder effect of the cranium kind of stretching, and hands kind of
Yeah.
pulsating.
He didn't seem to be in pain during it. He just was letting
Right,
it happen. Yeah.
letting it happen like it was just naturally going to happen. But in this one, it was devastating, because you felt every pop of every bone, how his hands were stretching, his jaw was elongated, the teeth popping. It was something else. And then I started to equate it with, oh shit, he's in a lot of pain. Like, this does not feel good. He's
Yeah.
screaming through every point. And then that fourth wall break where he reaches out to the screen, and I just felt
Yeah.
terrible for him. I was like, could somebody shoot him? Please shoot him,
Right.
you know? And then it happens, and then we don't see anything else until we really don't see the wolf until what, near the end of the movie, other than glimpses of him like gnawing
Yeah.
at
See the
people, right?
face. Yeah. Yeah. You see the snout and like the face once in a while, but you see him in part, like briefly in the
In the
subway tunnel.
subway, and that's the probably the most that we saw. And it was
Yeah.
still very far away and not very much in focus. So that all played such a great part in keeping you in suspense. Like, how is he,
Yeah.
these people. And then we see like him lunging at people, but we never see the full effect like we did with Jack, until we get to that part in the theater, and you see each of the victims and how gross and mangled they are, and bloody
Yeah.
and angry as they should be. Um, so then he turns, and he's kind of going on a little nibble fest, as it were. Um, little nibble love fest. And then he wakes up the next morning, and he's in the zoo. He's in the zoo,
Yeah. In the
and a
wolf
wolf
enclosure.
encampment, and a wolf encampment. And I love that scene, because he's stark naked. He doesn't know where he is. The wolves are looking at him like, bro, you got to get out.
Yeah.
They're not even, they're just like, could you leave? And then he leaves. Best scene ever is to see a naked man asking a kid for his balloons. And, he basically had to tell the kid he was going to give him some money to get the
Yeah.
balloon. And then after that, the kid goes to his mom, and he goes, a naked American man stole my balloon. And his mom goes, what? I
Yeah.
love that part. So that's what I mean. They're so British. If that was in America, man, that mom would have gone over there and beat that dude's ass in the end of it. But it was just the very calm way he said it to his mom, and the very calm way that she took it. What?
Yeah.
And then we see him running to get, steal that lady's coat, and he's waiting in line at the bus stop so he can go
Yeah.
home. How did he pay for the bus? Was the bus
Mm.
free?
I'm
Sorry.
assuming so.
maybe the woman had money in her pocket. That's the only thing
Yeah,
I
there
can
you
think
go.
of in that coat pocket. Maybe her billfold or wallet or coin purse or something was in there. But then he gets home and I think the nurse and the doctor were looking for him because now the doctor's kind of putting all of these little pieces together and wants her to keep him there, if I'm
Yes.
remembering this correctly.
Yeah.
Forgot to say that him and the nurse hooked up rather quickly.
Yes. Yeah,
And like
she
no
was
time
very
at
willing
all.
to take him home. He was getting let out and had nowhere to go. And so she's like, okay, well, I'll take you home with me.
I was like, dude,
Uh,
he was in the hospital for what, maybe 3 days? You don't know anything about this man
well,
other than he's not circumcised.
he was in the hospital for 3 weeks in like a coma.
Oh, in the
So
coma. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
But only like less than a week was he conscious. And so somehow they made that connection, which, is possible. I won't shit on that.
It's a Florence
You
Nightingale
can make a
effect, you
nice
know?
connection. Yeah.
Yeah. She's taking
So
care of him. She thought he was kind of cute, like this size of things, I guess. That's
yeah.
how I'm
Yeah.
gonna leave it there. And then she did feed him, and she was talking to him a lot, so maybe there was something there. But I absolutely love when she says to him, I think before she took him home, I'm a nurse, I don't make a lot of money. Man, when I saw that apartment, that flat was nice. I was like,
Yeah.
you must be making some money because you don't have a roommate, and this is nice. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? um y'all will learn. I like talking about people's living arrangements and how they live in movies. I know it's a movie, but that flat was nice as shit. I don't know what she was talking about.
Right.
I wouldn't move there right now if I could. um so David is all, after his night of nibbles, he's he's like
Hmm.
very vigorous. He's like pawing at her. He's trying to get frisky. He's hungry, which is wild. Um, and so she's bringing him to the doctor. I think that's what it was. She wasn't supposed to keep him there. She was supposed to bring him to the hospital so the doctor could, I guess,
Right.
examine him or tell him what was going on. And then the cabbie decides to tell them, start making small talk. Oh, have you heard about the murders? It's terrible about those murders. And David's like, what are you talking about? And then he tells him, and he flips out. He's like, what? He's like, stop the cab. I got to get out. I'll tell you
Yeah.
something that's really, really funny about that cab driver. Have you watched any of the Guy Ritchie movies yet?
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, when you watch Snatch, whenever you get to that movie, the cab driver plays a character named Bricktop, who's like the worst criminal. He's like the villain of the movie. And I thought, oh my God, this Bricktop. It's like I didn't even recognize him until he
That's
started
so
talking.
funny.
It's really neat. I think you'll love it. When you see it, you'll be like, oh yeah, that is the cabbie guy from that movie.
That's
Um,
so funny.
but yeah, he goes out there and he's trying to get arrested, and all of these things are happening. And it's just, he feels bad. Like he feels really, really bad that he knows now he's responsible for the deaths. Like who else could be? I I felt bad for him. I felt bad for the fact that he didn't want to do anything. He was trying to get locked up, like everybody does in werewolf movies, like chain me up, lock me up, all of this stuff. And
Yeah.
nobody's really
Yeah.
taking him seriously. What is he
Yeah.
like? He's saying like Prince Charles
Winston
the
Churchill
faggot
was
and yeah,
stupid. And yeah.
like really, really dumb things, but he's trying to get arrested because he does not want to hurt any more people. And then he takes off and he tells the nurse he loves her. And I was like, damn, dude, y'all ain't been together but a minute. I mean, I know you
Mm,
hit it, and I know y'all have been hooking up, and this is great.
yeah.
But that also plays into the tragic aspect of it because it's just like watching any of the old movies, just with a little bit more sex. Um,
Right.
but something terrible happens to him. He has to deal with it. He turns into this terrible thing. And now he's got this one person he doesn't want to be around because he thinks if he turns into a werewolf, he's going to hurt her. I mean, he would because he wouldn't even know who
Yeah.
she is. Um,
Exactly.
it's it's the story in this one is definitely more compelling and it's definitely better. That
Yes,
much I can
yeah.
tell you.
Yeah.
And
And
a
again,
funny
I think
tid
the tragic nature of it like definitely lends itself to it more. So
yeah. And I think the funny tidbit about this is when I went and saw this in the theater, if you've seen this movie, anybody that's listening, you've seen this movie, you know how graphic it is. You know how it is pretty gory. And like I said, I was about 10. The only thing, Robert, I swear to you, that my mother covered my eyes for was the PG 13 sex scene that they had,
yeah,
where in the shower, they're really just kissing and nibbling each other, and even
yeah,
in the bed, he's kind of just, he covers her. You can't even see her breast. There's nothing there.
yeah,
I think I see
yeah.
more nudity with him running around in the zoo than I saw with
Oh
her.
yeah,
And
yeah.
but that was the only time in this movie that she covered my face. Not when they were in the porn watching the porno movie. Just
Which
that
is actually the
lovemaking
most
scene.
nudity in the
That's the most
movie.
graphic. To this
Yeah,
day, that makes me laugh. I was like, they didn't even do anything in that bed scene. Like literally, they're
yeah,
just rubbing on each other and kissing each other, and they're straight up porn in the movie. Um, which once again, it's funny that they both have porn movies in them. I
yeah.
I
It's such a weird thing to put in there, like in both of these, and to
and
see
both of
them
these,
like back to back like that. Yeah,
and then there are some really creepy things. Like I'm talking about the funny stuff, but like we were talking about in the subway and the tube
yeah,
sequence, the camera and that claustrophobic feeling, and you're being chased by this thing. Once again, that we can see it from that person's point of view, but we can't see it until I think he falls on the little escalator, and then we see the pause, and the wolf kind of comes into frame for like a
yeah,
split second. Like we really don't see anything. Man, that made me so afraid. Like I
yeah,
in my head, that guy was ripped to shreds because we had
yeah,
already seen him. We'd seen Jack ripped to shreds. It was terrifying. It was a terrifying
yeah.
thing. Um, I feel like I'm taking over your your podcast right now. um, so we're almost at the end of the movie, right? So they're
Yes,
in a
yeah.
theater, and in the said porn theater that we were talking about, and I love the porn that's in there because it's like a
It's very
very
silly.
sparse. Yeah, it's a very silly porn and a very sparse crowd. And that
Yeah,
I was like, man, this is not must not be a good porn, which it wasn't. It was hilarious. Uh, so it's a woman and a man, and they're going at it. I'm just setting the porn up for you guys now.
yes,
So it's a woman and a guy going at it, and then some guy, big burly, muscular guy, comes in, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing with my wife?" And then the woman goes, "I've never seen you before in my life."
yeah.
I
And
just
he goes,
died.
"Oh, okay," and then he leaves.
Then they go back at it, which I thought was hilarious that Landis took the time to pause what was going
Like
on in
he
the theater
actually
between.
made. Well, and the funny thing is, he actually made the porn scenes for that movie. Like that's
Uh,
not an
I heard
existing
that.
porn. He actually had those filmed for the movie specifically.
Oh my gosh. It was funny. And I once again, my mom did not cover me for that. I just remember everybody in the theater busting out laughing when he's like, "Oh, okay." And then he leaves. It made no sense, but it was definitely one that stuck in my brain. So as he's in the theater, Jack, who's now a skeletal, just skeleton frame, still talking to him, and all of the countless victims he's already taken out, they're all telling him how he needs to kill himself. He needs to end this, or else more people they're gonna die. You know, and he's trying his best to figure out how he can do it. And I love that these now undead people are giving him so many choices on how
Yeah,
he can kill himself. They just wanted to end. They're done because they can't move on until he kills
yeah,
himself. They're going to be undead. And I think the one lady always makes me laugh because she's like, I don't know whether she said you could hang yourself, but she does it with like such a smile. You could hang yourself, and she's like got
yeah,
this cheery little grin on her face. That's what I mean. It's that British, even in being an undead person, she still has like a proper, upper look on things. It's so funny. It's absurd. Um, And then he said something, and then Jack's like, "No, if you do it, hangings. If you do it wrong, you could choke to death." And I'm thinking, Jack, that's the point. But he's his friend. He doesn't want him to suffer,
He
even
doesn't want
though
him to
he's this
suffer. Yeah.
undead thing. Yeah. So hilarious in that moment. And then we also get David having another massive, severe headache, which we all know what's happening because I think they even made a cut to show outside that there was a full moon
Yeah.
prior to him having this attack of now turning again. And this scene in there in that adult theater was so graphic, like just bloody and so much of that beastness. Oh my gosh, it was
Yeah.
it was something else. When the movie clerk comes in, he hears all the ruckus, and then you just see the wolf and all of him doing that gnawing motion. Oh my god, it was terrifying
Yeah.
to me. But I was
Yeah.
fascinated. As a kid, it was terrifying, but I was sitting there going, how did they do that?
Right.
I was a weird kid, let me tell you. Yeah,
We
Glenn's a
all
weird
were. I
adult,
mean,
as y'all can hear. Yeah, I think everybody's a little weird. We just, some of us don't admit it. I will admit it fully. But
absolutely.
what did you think about that scene?
No, I love that scene because I mean, like you said, it's got the whole bit with he's talking to at first it's just Jack, and then Jack is then saying the bit about like and then like has um the others his other victims come in and explains to him that he needs to kill himself or else they can't move on,
Right.
and which is an interesting wrinkle to that. And so it's like, so is this more about like is this not actually in his head then, or like, so because like it's interesting, like because he shouldn't know who these victims are, like he had no knowledge of who they
No
were.
previous contact
So
with them. Yeah.
yeah, and so and his only contact with them was as the wolf. And so it's just it's an interesting wrinkle that like you add to that, like, so the victims of werewolves don't get to move on unless that werewolf is dead.
And then it also does bring that interesting point too. So if they're undead, you still can see them, like they can still communicate with you. That's
Yes.
got to be a tremendous amount of pressure. Like I don't know what to do here. You know what I mean? You don't want to keep them in limbo. You don't want to die, but you don't want to hurt more people either. So I don't
Right.
know if you're basing it on the howling aspect, that mythos, and on, like, say, Monster Squad. Remember Monster Squad, they blew up the werewolf and he still regenerated and put himself back together. So would killing himself even work?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting.
I mean,
um
in this movie, we let's get to the ending. I'll let you
yeah.
finish because I seem to be telling the story. But I'll let you finish the movie.
Well, so he transforms into the wolf, attacks the people inside, kills them all, and then the lady, the ticket taker at the front,
Mm-hmm.
is goes screaming for the cops. The cops come, they go in. He sees like the mangled remains of somebody in the theater, and then sees the wolf, the werewolf, and is just like freaks out, runs out, closes the shutter, the gate of the theater, and then like has to like push against it to keep the wolf from getting out, and calls more cops over. They all come over. Meanwhile, like everybody in the area is just all of a sudden crowding around, like the cops trying to tell them to get the hell away.
That's that
um
thing, that one caveat that they always say, not to be a racial person, but they always say white people go towards the danger and black people
right.
don't. Why would you go towards something that's growling at you? You don't even know what's in
Right.
there.
Yeah,
And
you
you're
don't know
right.
if
The
it's
cop
a
is telling them to disperse and nobody is listening.
yeah, exactly. I like it's such a dumb movie, a horror movie cliche that they do that. It's like, just go, get away. And then finally they get him to go away just before the wolf, or like just when the wolf is like coming out and there's like tons of
Bursting
cops
through.
around, bursts through, kills the detective, just as he arrives on the scene and starts running through the London streets, and
Just kind of
uh,
taking bites out of people.
yeah, just taking bites out of people, causing car accidents. People are dying left and right, and then he ends up in a like kind of trapped in a alleyway, in a dead end alleyway. Nurse Price gets there just in time and goes down the hall, like goes down the corridor, trying to, I guess, in some way,
Reason with him.
reason with him or calm him down or whatever. And then just he goes to, I guess, attack and then gets shot by all the cops that are behind her. Luckily they miss her. Um,
They're dead
uh,
eyes, right? I mean, how do you shoot around
yeah,
a person?
right. And then he ends up laying dead on the ground. In human form, bullet holes in him. The transformation back is fast,
It's super
which
fast,
I
yeah.
noticed. It's just like immediate, like immediately he's back to human.
But
And
that's how it was
apparently,
in the beginning.
yeah. And in this world, it doesn't take silver bullets, just regular bullets would beat
See, which
somebody.
is weird. In this world, it doesn't take silver bullets, but the full moon affects it.
Right. Yeah.
It's weird.
So,
It's weird how they
yeah.
they kind of pick and choose what works.
Which pieces of the mythology that they're going to use? Yeah.
But it's a very tragic story. Like you said, it's
Yeah.
she's
This one's
trying
the
to
more
reason with
tragic.
him. Yeah, and I mean he's full on a beast at this point. Nothing she could. It's almost like he recognized her, but not really. That part of him was already gone. Um, and I always wondered that too. That alley was narrow as shit, and they still managed to not. I mean, they didn't even wing her. Like you would think that they would have just accidentally hit her, or maybe she would have ducked or moved to the side. Like the best
Yeah.
sharpshooters ever.
Right.
And then we cut to the blue moon playing in the
Oh my God.
in the
That
credits.
again, another jarring juxtaposition, just all of a sudden, ba ba da da ba ba da ba.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's a Landisisms for you.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it
It's like
is.
so sudden and jarring. And it's like you would think that they would go out into like, somber music, like a somber song at least or
Nope.
something. Nope, nope. Right into like an upbeat, crazy song. So it's a yeah, I mean, I think again, I'll say I think this is the better movie, but I think that ultimately I still say Howling's probably my favorite between the two, just because it does more of what I like with werewolf movies.
Yeah, I once again I love them both equally, and it's only because I know I love An American Werewolf in London more slightly because it was one that I got to experience with my mother, and I remember what that theater experience was like. While my brain still works, I still remember that.
Yeah,
Um, but I just absolutely love the bipedal design of the
yeah,
werewolf. To me, it's just creepier and it hits harder. It just feels more like a monster.
yeah,
Not that the wolves
absolutely.
don't, but I need to see them standing up and hulking over people.
Right. Yeah,
That's just the perfect kind of werewolf, perfect kind of lycanthrope, because everything just seems like it would be even more deadly in that fashion, of them being like 7 feet tall and being able to swipe at you and knock your head off your block. I mean, it's just I love them. I absolutely love them. So I love both. But the
yes.
story is definitely better in American Werewolf in London. There's none of this question of what was going on with this community of werewolves that didn't get along with each other. I do like the fact that they can change at will. We need to keep more
Yes.
of that. And we need to have more female werewolf movies. I know you're probably going to talk about one. Hopefully, I'm not going to ask you. I'll just wait and listen like everybody else. You're going to tell me. I'm going to ask you. but
which
uh,
which
but
one are you
yeah,
hoping for?
I I I love ginger snaps.
Yes, I am talking about ginger snaps.
Yay! Way to go, Robert. I would have come and done that one, but nah, I'm gonna get you with the big ones now. Um, So I thoroughly enjoyed this. I think we went way too long,
Yes.
as we are wont to do, but it was a hoot. I love
Yes.
talking movies with you. I absolutely do. I will try to
Absolutely.
be a lot shorter the next time you ever ask me back. If you ask me back, because I know I went a little too long on
Oh,
this
you
one.
know I'll have you back on.
Yay! I cannot wait.
Well,
Uh,
well, why don't
mhm.
you let people know where they can find you online?
So I am on Twitter and Instagram under the I can't talk under the name Donna underscore the THA underscore dead. I also have a Donna the Dead podcast, and you can listen to it wherever you listen to podcasts. Um, that's pretty much it. I don't really have anything else going on. I guess I need to get on Discord and all of that stuff, huh?
Yes, yeah. Gotta come get on my Discord.
I will come join you. I will come join you there.
Good, good. All right. Well, thanks again. I very much appreciate you coming on the show. It's always fun having you. And you will I'll be definitely asking you back pretty soon.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll be here.
Thanks again to Donna for joining me. Next week, Molly Henry joins me to talk about Teen Wolf and Ginger Snaps. Thanks for listening. If you like what you've heard, please consider giving the show 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, please share the podcast on social media to help spread the word. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. Music for the podcast composed by Jerry Smith. You can follow the podcast on social media at Creepy and Geeky on both Twitter and Instagram. If you'd like to follow me, I'm GeekThulu on Twitter and geek.thulu on Instagram. You can support the podcast by donating to the Ko-fi page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.